You ever get the feeling we're watching history being written in real time? Well, today's headlines, they're not just random events. They're pieces of a much bigger puzzle, one that's about a fundamental shift in American power. So let's try to connect the dots. All right, first up, the headline pulse. Let's look at what's happening right now. And we're not talking about minor policy shifts here. No, we're talking about moves that are shaking up the very foundation of how America deals with the rest of the world. So first, you've got this really unusual situation. President Trump is pushing Denmark and pushing them hard to sell Greenland to the United States. But here's the kicker. It's how he's doing it that's got everyone's attention. He's using the threat of massive economic tariffs against some of our closest European allies. And that number right there, 25%, that's the hammer. It's the proposed tariff on all goods from the UK and several major EU nations, and it's set to hit on June 1st. This thing went from a strange real estate proposal to a full-blown economic ultimatum like overnight. And from what we're hearing, European leaders were just completely blindsided. But it doesn't stop at redrawing maps. The next move is about reshaping global power itself. President Trump has actually sent out formal invitations to 60 countries to join a brand new organization, one designed to be an alternative to the United Nations. He's calling it the Board of Peace. And if you dig into the proposal, there's this one detail that is just staggering. According to the letters sent out, President Trump would be the permanent chairman of this new board for life. I mean, think about that. It's a plan to replace a global, multinational body with an institution led by a single person, forever. Now, these headlines might seem all over the place, right? But they actually point to a really consistent philosophy, one that sees the entire world as a series of business deals. And that brings us to the core of what we're talking about today, diplomacy as a transaction. So here's the definition we're working with, pulled from an analysis of these events. The idea is that this isn't about traditional ideology, left versus right. It's more of an operating model. A model where things like international law and treaties, well, they can take a back seat if there's a resource on the table that's wanted badly enough. And you can really see the contrast laid out here. On the one side, you've got the way things have been done for decades, diplomacy built on alliances, shared values, international norms. And on the other side, you have what's being called the Trump model, where diplomacy is treated more like real estate, focused on getting land and resources, and using economic penalties as the main tool of persuasion. And it's not just a theory. Proponents of this view point to other examples. Take the intervention in Venezuela. According to the source material, it was first framed as part of the war on drugs, but later President Trump himself reportedly admitted it was really about securing the country's oil. It's held up as a textbook case of foreign policy as pure resource acquisition. So when you have this new transactional approach, it's bound to clash with the old way of doing things, with the existing global institutions. It's like you've got the old guard in one corner and this new order in the other. Let's dig into that growing friction. Okay, so let's look closer at this Board of Peace. The proposal isn't cheap. It includes a $1 billion fee for a permanent seat. It's essentially a pay-to-play UN. Some of the names being floated as key members include Marco Rubio, Jared Kushner, and even Tony Blair. And its first big task? To tackle the Gaza conflict. Reports are even suggesting both Israel and Hamas are willing to come to the table. Now, here's a crucial piece of context. While this new club is being formed, the original United Nations says the U.S. is already behind on its dues, to the tune of $1.5 billion. So this isn't just a philosophical disagreement. There's real money and real tension behind it. And you better believe Europe isn't just sitting back and taking it. In response to the whole Greenland situation and the tariff threats, the EU is getting ready to hit back, and hit back hard. That number you see, 93 billion euros, that's the value of the retaliatory tariffs they're lining up against U.S. companies. And it's not just about slapping taxes on American goods. The EU is getting ready to unleash what some are calling a trade bazooka. It's a powerful tool that could literally block American companies from Europe's most vital sectors. We're talking banking, tech, defense. Just let that sink in. America's oldest allies are now building economic weapons specifically to use against the United States. But this transactional mindset isn't just for foreign policy. That same lens is being turned inward, on domestic issues, especially immigration. And in this arena, the cost isn't measured in dollars and cents. It's measured in human lives. The source material we're working from actually uses a chilling quote from Anne Frank to capture the atmosphere of fear in some communities. Families are torn apart,
children find their parents have disappeared. It's a really stark parallel, meant to highlight the profound human cost of these policies.
The push for mass deportations has meant citywide sweeps using newly hired ICE agents. And there have been serious concerns raised about how these agents are vetted, with some critics going so far as to call them the Proud Boys with badges. This aggressive approach has had tragic consequences, including the shooting death of an American mother named Renee Good, an event that sparked widespread outrage. And tragically, that's not an isolated event. 32, that's the number of people who have died in ICE custody in just the last year. It's a number that cuts right through the political noise and points to a lethal reality. Okay, let's pull the camera back one last time. We've seen the headlines, we've looked at the transactional philosophy, and we've touched on the human cost. But what are the history books going to say about right now? What is all this signal for the future? I mean, just look at how fast this is escalating. It starts with a 10% tariff in February. By June, it's set to jump to 25%. European leaders are planning a confrontation at Davos. And the very next step is a vote by the EU Council on whether or not to fire that trade bazooka. Which leads us to the immediate billion-dollar question. You've got the world's two biggest free trade partners on the brink of an economic war unlike anything we've ever seen. So, who blinks first? The answer to that is going to ripple through the entire global economy. But even beyond that, there's a much bigger question, one for the historians. 100 years from now, when they look back, will they see this as the precise moment that the American and European economies, the very bedrock of the post-war world, started to permanently break apart? And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. When diplomacy becomes a real estate deal, when alliances have a price tag, and when power itself is just another transaction, what's the final price? And who ultimately has to pay it?